Well, hey, howdy, I got a Patreon now. There's a sneak peek of the next video I'm working on. You can ask me questions. You can give me suggestions for more things you'd like to see or stuff you'd like to see me make a video on. So, please give me money on Patreon. Arcane Season 2 trailer is here, and it is, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Is this allowed? What the fuck? Is that allowed?
Stop. Now the real trailer starts when Ambessa starts talking. She's looking around the room like she's talking to council members in a circular type room, and she says, we need to declare martial law. Now, if you don't know, martial law is when the military supplants the government. It's also interesting because it looks like Ambessa is saying this to this guy, aka Sallow. And just as we have in Season 2, the Chem Barons coming into much greater relevance, it makes sense that whatever surviving council members are also going to have an increased importance in Season 2. Otherwise, it wouldn't make so much sense for these characters to be in this story at all. And this story has been planned from the very beginning. I think it would be interesting if each of the surviving council members had a very different take on the conflict occurring. And interestingly, Sallow was the very last member of the council, other than Caitlyn's mom, to vote for peace. And Caitlyn's mom's chair looks like this, so, you know, she's probably not going to survive. This means that of the surviving members, he might be the most war-hungry among them. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Anyways, a lot of people are avoiding spoilers, so we're going to focus on themes to start out. Now, the first obvious theme is rebellion, or revolution. Jinx has become a revolutionary character in Zaun. In the previous trailer, we saw this mural of Jinx, followed by a bunch of blue-haired people, and we thought that this might be her followers. And in this trailer, we got a confirmation of that. We see all these Jinx wannabes, and Savika tells Jinx that she is a symbol to rally the Undercity together. And this isn't just idle talk. We see a mural that indicates that she is inheriting the legacy of Vander. If you forgot or you didn't know, in the first season, Vander's reputation was one of the Wolf of the Lanes, a revolutionary standing up for Zaun against Piltover, even though by the end his ideals of non-conflict were all he held on to. Also, I just want to put it out there that I am the original Jinx wannabe, so, you know, don't you ever come for my throne. Anyways, this mural raises a lot of really interesting questions for me, like, why does Jinx become a hero to the Undercity? Is it the colorful explosions we see in the Season 2 trailer? Is it due to hurting the council? Is it something else we haven't seen? For all of these, how is it that Jinx has gotten the credit? How has her story become known? I don't have the answers to all of these questions, but they're very interesting questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Now, Jinx's colorful attacks on Piltover are a little bit more tame than you would assume that they are. You can actually see in this shot of the trailer that the council building is still standing and that it doesn't actually have much damage done to it, even though Jinx bada-bombed it with Hex Tech. You'd think it would do a lot more damage than that. But no, it just looked like a simple window fix-up and maybe a trip to Home Depot. And again, when Jinx explodes Piltover with colors, it isn't lethal. These policemen are seen all over the show, and there is absolutely no way they'd show us a death scene. Like, imagine if they showed us Milo and Clagger's death scene in the trailers for Season 1. It makes absolutely no sense. And to add to the confusion, she says in this trailer that her plan is to watch it all burn. And yet we see people fighting in the smoke during the trailer. I mean, this ain't much more than a violent Holly festival. So why? Why does Jinx terrorize the city, but doesn't really seem to be making an effort to win the war with brutality, even though it would be so easy for her? And the opposition, the enforcers, are seen doing the same to the people of Zaun. Is it a conscious choice? Are her weapons not strong enough? Well, I have an idea. If we go frame by frame, we can see that at the start of this explosion, Caitlyn's enforcer posse is arresting a Zaunite. And wouldn't you know it, the explosion makes arresting kind of hard to do. So maybe this is a way of breaking people out of prisons like we see in the other trailer, and as a cover for those crowds escaping these prisons to fight back against enforcers. Not only that, but the mural of Jinx is depicted with these doves of peace, white doves, which represent peace, of course. And it's kind of hard for her to maintain that status, if that is indeed a status that she cares about very much at all, if she's out here murdering Zaunites. Also, interestingly, we see that these explosions are breaking the ground beneath Piltover where they stand, and that this is actually in the lore the original creation story for Zaun. That a series of misplaced explosions beneath the city ended up creating the Fissures of Zaun. So maybe we'll even see some new fissures pop up as a result of these explosions. If these explosions are indeed being used to liberate people who are being arrested by enforcers, maybe the enforcers have gone a little crazy on the Zaunites looking for Jinx, that would be a very straightforward way for her to become a hero to the Zaunite people. Let's circle back around. So you remember when Jinx said she just wants to watch it all burn? Well, This hints towards a potential conflict between Savika and Jinx. Savika clearly wants to continue Silco's legacy of freeing the Zonite people, but Jinx's response, "I just want to watch it all burn," means that maybe all she's going to be doing is sowing chaos, and that could lead to some conflict between the two of them. Alright, the next thing we're going to talk about is authoritarianism. We see Ambessa in both the first trailer and in this trailer push for a brutal war, shutting it down and suggesting martial law, which we covered earlier. And Caitlyn, who wants to tear that laugh from her throat forever. She's viciously anti-Jinx, and as we know from the game and her fancy hat, she gets promoted to sheriff, meaning she's been empowered by the Piltover government itself to aggressively hunt Jinx down. All of this, combined with shots of enforcers hurting people, arresting people, prepping blockades, prepping for war, etc., paints a pretty bleak picture of what it's like to be a citizen of Piltover in this time. So again, it makes sense why Jinx, someone who can dance around enforcers and maybe do a little bit of colorful terrorism, would be revered during such an oppressive time. Which brings us to our final theme, shifting allegiances. The Chembarons turn against Jinx. Savika joins Jinx. Echo joins Vi, but Vi joins the Enforcer. Now Vi turns against Jinx, but Echo fights the Noxians.
What?
And then the Noxians turn against Piltover.
Wait, what?
And then the Firelights join Jinx?
What?
At this point, this is like the messiest dating pool of all time. And even this bartender Theorem, who was terrified of Jinx in Season 1, ends up joining her cause. Anyways, we kind of zoomed through some important stuff there, so let's refocus. Now, we see earlier in the trailer an Enforcer attacking a Firelight, so we know that the Enforcers and Firelights are going to be at each other's throats. But what's really interesting is one of the girls here looks kind of like the Firelight that gets smacked by the Enforcer. So either this is the craziest coincidence look-alike, or she has defected to working with Jinx, or she's keeping tabs on Jinx for the Firelights. Or maybe the Firelights and Jinx are actually working together. We see Echo later on has a little Jinx X on his pants, meaning that, hey, maybe he's in league with Jinx against Piltover now. Echo even says sometimes taking a leap forward means leaving a few things behind, and hey, wouldn't you know it, it might make sense if he means leaving behind his hatred for Jinx that he has. Echo also has his zero drive here, which allows him to go back a few seconds every time he does something. And what's interesting is that this piece of equipment in particular requires a Hex Tech gemstone to function. So where did he get this Hex Tech gemstone? I think the most obvious answer here would be from Heimerdinger, but if he's working with Vi, who's working with Enforcers, or if he's working with Jinx, he could be getting it from everyone. Honestly, ideologically, Echo kind of gets around, you know? And speaking of Echo getting around, look at him getting down here. We see Echo in a Piltover outfit, which I can only assume comes from working with Heimerdinger. And how about this scene? The Firelights are flying to fight in what looks like Piltover with no mask, which means they don't care about their identities being revealed to enforcers and police who might take note of it. And if you go slowly, we can also see they are attacking Noxians, and those Noxians are attacking enforcers. So this changes kind of everything at this point. Does Ambessa attempt a coup on Piltover? Is Echo working with enforcers despite how they treat the Firelight? Echo's attack scene happens during Jinx's color explosions, presumably the big ones, but you know, she's been throwing out a lot of explosives in these trailers. And Ambessa, oh my god, she's out here straight up murdering enforcers. Like, this isn't a light escalation, this is just straight up massacre here. So this brings up the question, how is this going to go down? Does Ambessa maybe get her wish of martial law and then betrays the council? Or do they reject her idea of martial law and she decides to come in and try and take over? Or maybe she sees that Piltover is weak and she sees her opportunity to strike. What do you think? We also see several shots with multiple battleships, so we know that they're going to be bringing a whole army to this fight. Okay, next theme, but honestly, it's a bit more of a concept than a theme. Magic. We got Magic Guy, White Guys, the Hexcate dies, Hex Core, Jace? Let's jump into it. Now in this shot we see something that kinda looks like the Hex Core, but honestly there's a lot of architecture around it that looks very similar to it, so I'm tempted to say that this is not the Hex Core, although it certainly seems to possess the same magical qualities. But we got four little culty hooligans here who later end up getting possessed by some kind of magic, the Arcane if you will. Now, initially, I was again tempted to say that this is the work of the Hex Core, but when you look at the runes appearing on their skin, it's nothing at all like what you see on the Hex Core. The cult also kind of reminds me of Victor, and while this is not Victor's foot, I think there's a good chance they're related. So all the people in this shot have the same look as if they're in a cult or religion. And if we look at this religious person's biggies, we can see they have a similar sheen to Victor's, although it is clearly not Victor's. Now, if you don't know the lore, there is something called the Church of the Glorious Evolved. And I would assume this is it. Their main shtick is that they are transhumanists. They want to replace their body parts with machinery and magic and whatever else. Kind of like what Victor's doing. That being said, I have literally no idea what this could be other than the hex core. So I'm just going to call it the hex core from now on. And speaking of the hex core, if you look, the very last frame has a shot of Jace. Now, a part of me is tempted to say that this is just a weird transition that they're using in the show that they forgot to cut out of the trailer. But it's certainly fun to think about. Why is Jace inside the hex core? Did it swallow them up and that's how they survived the Jinx explosion? I think that's unlikely. But let me know what you think, because this is just funny as hell. What are you doing in there, man? The inside of the hex gate is absolutely spazzing out, like it's corrupted or something's misadjusted. And maybe it's corrupted by the hex core. This is the same magician that saved Jace in episode 2 of season 1. And the shot is just so fascinating to me. Does this magician come back as a character? Is this just the standard visuals when somebody teleports? This has to mean that this character returns, right? But also that seems to be so out of left field. And why would this character be associated with the hex core? Please give me your theories. I'm at a loss here. And here's everything else from the trailer that didn't fit into the themes. There's a scene of Savika and Caitlyn on what appears to be a first date that is going very well. Caitlyn's got a new gun. She's basically fucking Inspector Gadget at this point. We got Echo and what I assume is Enforcer Vi working together. And given the earlier scene with Echo, I assume it's to fight the Noxians. Now, while I haven't seen Vi wear this with her Enforcer outfit, this piece of armor, we do see that it's the exact same armor that Caitlyn wears. So maybe it's just the heavy armor standard for all Enforcers. We also get a very brief shot of someone in a cape lighting up the exact same flare Jinx used to try and find Vi. But what this says to me is, along with the dyed hair, is that Jinx will have lookalikes. We see that the figure that's responsible for the bombings on one of the prison checkpoints is a hooded figure, and this looks like it could be the exact same cape that is used by the person trying to free the people. But what you'll very obviously notice is that this hand is not Jinx's hand. So this lends a lot more credence to the idea that Jinx will have copycat attackers throughout the city, which would only add to her notoriety because she would end up getting credit for all these other people's acts too. Jinx has lost her exes. Jinx has lost her exes. Vi has anime eyes. Ambessa looking fierce. Singed is talking about touching his when he says, "You felt it, haven't you?" Now, I am a strong supporter of goth girl rights, but, Vi looks downright terrifying here. Warwick gives delicate head pats to humans who pass by. There's a shot of Jinx looking snazzy in her new outfit with new colors. And we can also see in the background Clagger's doll and Milo. So clearly this is an area that she has had time to set up for. But what's interesting is it's very bright and sunny, so that leads me to believe that it's somewhere in Piltover. That would be fascinating if she's managed to take over so much of Piltover that she has her own base there. Then the trailer just hits us with an absolute mixtape of interesting stills and stops, all in like the span of 1 second, but we're going to go through all of them. We got a kid dressed as Jinx being saved, which is maybe a parallel to the opening shot of season 1. And we see what kind of looks like the gem that Jace has, the one that was given to him by the magician, but embedded in somebody's left arm. Now, I would assume this is Victor due to the cane, but it is very difficult to tell since this cane is also not at all the same cane that Victor originally had. But if you zoom in, you can also see that it has a little rune embedded on it, so that also lends credence to the idea that it's Victor. We also have a shadowy looking figure that looks like Silco. Are you kidding me, guys? The creators did confirm that Silco was coming back in season 2, but we all assumed it was through flashbacks and stuff. I didn't think that he would actually be a character. This could also just be a hallucination that Jinx is having, so maybe he's not actually coming back to life, but wow, super interesting. Vi fights Warwick. I hope to God she doesn't know that that's her father in there. Heimerdinger clicks on a detonator, and Jinx herself has something that explodes during her big fight with Vi. I assume this is one of her hex tech weapons gone crazy or absolutely bonkers and out of her control. And that's all she wrote. Like and subscribe. Bye-bye.